Have you ever really stopped to think about how you think? I mean, it feels pretty simple, right? Just a straightforward thing happening inside our own heads. But what if I told you that underneath it all, your mind is running on a set of rules that are, well, kind of bizarre and totally counterintuitive? Let's dive in and explore the hidden mechanics of our minds.
So let's just start with this question right here. Do you really know what's going on in there? You know, it turns out our internal world isn't some clear window we can just peer through. It's actually a lot more like a hall of mirrors filled with strange reflections and all this hidden machinery. So today we're going to peel back the layers on a few of the most surprising ways our minds work. Before we get to one pretty radical theory that might just explain everything.
First up, let's talk about how we see the world around us. Or maybe more accurately, how we sometimes end up seeing ourselves in the world around us. This is a fascinating concept that comes from psychoanalytic theory, and it's called psychological projection.
Okay, so a really great way to get this is to imagine your mind as like a movie projector. Now, when there's a feeling or a thought inside you that's just too uncomfortable to deal with, your mind doesn't just let it sit there. Nope. Instead, it does this clever little trick. It projects that feeling outward, splashing it all over someone else. Suddenly, it looks like they're the one with the problem, not you.
So here's the more formal definition. Projection is a defense mechanism, and the most important word there is unconscious. This is not something you're doing on purpose. It's your ego's automatic self-preservation instinct just kicking in to shield you from anxiety or from having to face a part of yourself that you find, well, unacceptable.
And believe me, this happens all the time, in all sorts of ways. Think about it. In a relationship, a partner who's feeling a little tempted to be unfaithful might suddenly get intensely suspicious of their totally loyal partner. Or at work, somebody who's secretly insecure about their own intelligence might be the very first person to call everyone else's ideas stupid. So here's a thought. The next time you feel this really intense, almost out of proportion judgment of someone, just pause and ask yourself, could this be a clue? A reflection of something I'm trying to avoid in myself? Okay, so that's how we can get things wrong about others. But what about how we understand ourselves? I mean, common sense tells us our beliefs and feelings cause our actions, right? But what if it's actually the other way around? This is the wild idea at the core of something called self-perception theory.
So back in the 1960s, a psychologist named Daryl Bem came up with this pretty radical idea. He basically argued that we don't have some special, direct pipeline into our own feelings. Instead, we figure ourselves out in the exact same way we figure other people out, by just watching our own behavior.
The whole process works kind of like you're a detective on your own case. So step one, you just do something, an action. Let's say you find yourself eating a second sandwich without really thinking about it. Step two, you observe what you just did. And then step three, from that observation, you infer your internal state. You think, wow, I must have been way hungrier than I thought. You see, the action came first, and your belief about your hunger came second. All right, so if our minds are out there projecting flaws onto other people, and we're figuring out our own beliefs by watching what we do, well, it can kind of feel like we're not really in the driver's seat. But this next part introduces a super simple but really practical tool that helps put you back in control. It's an ancient Hawaiian healing practice called hoponopono.
So the modern practice of hoponopono is centered around repeating 4 simple phrases. I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. Now, this isn't necessarily you apologizing to someone else. Think of it more as a mantra for internal cleaning. It's a tool to take responsibility for your own experiences and restore your own inner harmony.
Now, its roots are in community-based conflict resolution, but the modern version of it is really a tool for self-healing. The fundamental idea here is that by healing yourself, by taking 100% responsibility for your own perceptions, you can actually create positive change in the world around you.
And hey, before you write this off as just some spiritual mumbo-jumbo, just look at the data. Studies have actually shown that hoponopono has real, measurable, positive effects. Research on adults with hypertension? It led to a significant drop in blood pressure. In a group home for male adolescents, it helped transform hostility into better communication. It's a powerful tool, and it has a real-world impact.
So far, we've been looking at the what. You know, the strange little bugs in our mental software, like projection and self-perception. But this brings up a much deeper question. Why does our mind work in these weird, counterintuitive ways in the first place? To even begin to explore that, we need to zoom all the way out to a pretty radical new framework that some researchers believe might hold the answer: the idea of the quantum mind.
For centuries, we've pretty much operated on a classical mechanical model of the world. You know, A is A, B is B. Everything is definite, everything is separate.
But then, quantum theory came along and showed us a totally different reality at the subatomic level, one filled with uncertainty, superposition, and deep interconnectedness. The field of quantum cognition basically proposes that our minds don't work like classical computers. They work more like quantum systems, which allows them to do things that violate the old rules of logic and probability.
Two really key ideas from quantum physics are being used here: contextuality and entanglement. So contextuality is the idea that the order of your thoughts can actually change the outcome. This might be why asking someone, "Are you happy?" and then asking, "Are you in a good relationship?" gets a totally different answer than if you ask those questions in the reverse order. And entanglement suggests that concepts can be linked in this non-separable way. Take a phrase like stone lion. You can't really think about the stone part without it instantly changing how you think about the lion part. They become this single bound thing.
And look, this isn't just about math. It's a huge philosophical shift. As the Nobel-winning physicist Wolfgang Pauli put it, it's about a view of reality that embraces both sides, the physical world we can measure and the psychical world of our minds, not as separate things, but as two totally compatible sides of the very same coin.
So, we've seen how our minds can project our inner world onto other people, how we literally figure out our beliefs by watching our actions, and how we can use simple practices to consciously direct our inner state. We've even touched on a mind-bending theory that suggests our consciousness is a fundamental part of reality itself. So, if all of this is true, if your mind isn't some fixed machine, but a dynamic story that you both observe and direct, that leaves one big question: what story will you choose?